Hi everyone. So what I have for you is the work in progress that is my final project. I am writing a research article using data that I collected this semester. I have isolated a chunk of it that I think narrative and what we've learned this semester can really help me explore and understand. I'll give you a little bit of the background on the literature and the theory that I'm working with right now, but I would really love some fresh eyes in terms of analysis. I've done a couple of rounds myself, and I'm a little stuck at this point. So any feedback you're willing to give, I do have some specific questions at the end, but I would love whatever you're willing to give me. So this is currently my working title, and this is my working question. So what I'm looking at is how the consistent retelling of one particular experience impacted this teacher's reflection on that experience. So in terms of the literature, I'm looking at not only the importance of story, but the importance of teacher story, and how teacher story is represented and utilized in the research. And then I'm also looking at the function of retelling. So what can we learn from the retelling of narratives and how they're utilized by different people for different reasons. In terms of theory, based on the two um, coding passes that I've done, I keep coming back to Bakhtin's ideological becoming. Ideological becoming is what happens when we try to work through the tensions of two competing discourses. Um, he argued that we are constantly in battle with authoritative discourse and then our own internal discourse. And what happens as a result of the navigation of that tension is a change in worldview. So, what I think is happening has elements of that to it. I'm interested to see what others think. So, in terms of data collection, I collected data in a rural school in Western New York. It was an 11th grade English classroom with a female ELA teacher. I followed her for this is from one single day over 4 different class periods. I observed, I audio recorded, and I took field notes. So, Minerva, my participant, is a 20-year veteran teacher. She's the chair of her English department. Um, she attended a professional development workshop this summer that focused on utilizing digital video in the classroom. And this is her first time using DV in her class. Excuse me. So, on this particular day, she was introducing the video project that the students would be required to complete. She herself had completed this project as a part of the professional development, and she utilized her own video as an example. So, what was her story? Just briefly, over the summer, she created a video poem where she selected a poem she had worked with for several years, and she turned that poem into a digital composition. What happened is that throughout the process of composing that video, she had what she calls a breakthrough or an epiphany, where she realized something new about the poem, something that she had never realized in the 5 or so years that she had been teaching it. So, for the first round of analysis, I isolated the unit of analysis after I kind of was listening back through the audio and looking through my field notes. I recognized that this same story repeated over all 4 class periods that she taught that day. So I isolated the introduction to the project and the announcement that she would be showing her video to the end of her video and then moving into of another video as kind of my unit of analysis. As I read through these sections, I realized that there were actually 2 narratives embedded in this particular chunk of the audio. So she tells a narrative of her process, and then she also tells the narrative of her reflection. So she actually reflects upon her reflection. Um, so in terms of what coding looked like, anything that had to do with the compositional choices that she made was coded as process. Anything that she had that had to do with a realization or the epiphany or the breakthrough that she talks about was coded as reflection. So here are some examples of what I coded as process and what I coded as reflection. This is just a very small example. I do still have quite a bit of dialogue and narrative to work through, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what I'm looking at. So once I did this, I then decided that I was going to focus on the reflection aspect of it because I think that something very interesting was going on. So I actually used Labov's model. I did not categorize for abstract, but I did look at the reflective narrative throughout the 4 classes using the other 5 components. Um, I had isolated anything that I coded as reflection and separated it from the process so I could focus very tightly on that. So I know this is really hard to see, but I also attached this to my post. So this is kind of where I took chunks of the data and the narrative and I placed them based on what they were. I color coded it in terms of Roy G. Biv. So anything that's in red happened first, orange is second, green is third, blue is fourth, and purple is fifth. And that was just a way for me to kind of see very quickly the consistency. So you'll see that things didn't always go perfectly in order. Um, at least based on what I understand of each of these categories. However, they're they're relatively consistent across. Um, so what I think was really interesting about the fact that things were not occurring in order was that she was actually working through some of the tension of this experience. So she states the complicating action is that she realized that she's been teaching this poem, for a long time. I think at one point she says 5 years, and she's never realized this particular thing. And then she evaluates the thing, and that it's this poem is not just about writing, but it's about writing in the 21st century. And that's, kind of the evaluation of that experience. So between the complication and the evaluation and then the result, I think that she's navigating how what she thought she knew is no longer because she experienced this process. Um, as a result of this, I think that what happened is that she ends up changing her ideas about what this poem is about and how she's going to teach it. So what I think is going on is that her reflection on the reflection is the result of a competing discourse regarding the poem. So what she thought she knew versus what she discovered. In terms of what the reflection looks like, the details grow throughout the reflective process. All of the core things are the same, but they become elaborated on a little bit more each time. And then the ratio of process narrative to reflective narrative changes throughout the 4 periods. By the final period that I observed, most of her dialogue in this particular unit of analysis is reflective. So I think that she, as she's going, is working through this a little bit more each time. So overall, what I think it means is that her reflective retellings are the result of her wanting to work through this. She wants to share this with her students as a example of process, but I think she actually also experiences a new view of this poem that will then change how she approaches it in the future. Um, so this is where I need help. Is the connection that I'm making between my analysis and the use of Labov clear? Does it make sense? I immediately kind of, the disjointedness of the occurrence of events is what kind of led me to think that she's working through something. And then, is there anywhere that the process narrative um, belongs in here other than as the precursor to what kind of made the reflection possible. I would love and welcome any feedback you guys are willing to give. I really, this is something that is really exciting to me. So thank you very much.